not worried about tomorrow. Today I declare freedom from yesterday, all in my past. Things are made brand new, and don't it feel good to know that all is well and unfolding as it should. I can change my reality by changing my mind. Perfect peace, joy, and happiness is yours and mine. I am loved and so are you, and don't it feel fine? 'Cause all is well and unfolding as it should. Don't you know that all is well? All is well. All is well and unfolding as it should. All is well. All is well. All is well and unfolding as it should. I am cloaked in the Spirit. I am fed by the divine. I am one with peace in my soul and mind. I'm so blessed and so are you. And don't it feel good to know that all is well and unfolding as it should. All is well. All is well. All is well and unfolding as it should. Don't you know all is well? All is well. All is well and unfolding as it should. Why, thank you, Linda. Thank you, ladies. Oh, that was fantastic. Wonderful song by a dear friend of mine, Eddie Watkins Jr., All is Well. Welcome to Kitchen Conversations, and tonight we have a wonderful panel in store for you. The beautiful thing about Kitchen Conversations is that as uncomfortable as the stories may be, this is the time for us to do it. This is a place, and it helps us carry this energy of love and willingness to share our stories out into the world. So before we do anything, we love to bless the night. So let's take a moment and take a breath with me. Let us breathe into this divine heat, popping, sweating moment. It is the divine expression of energy, vibration, and life, pulsating through each and every one of us. How great it is to recognize the magnificent beauty of life. Life in the form of perspiration, life in the form of heat, life in the form of the divine sunlight. Oh, the beautiful sun that is reflecting the magnificence of spirit everywhere. So just as we know that the sun is for all, we know that equality is for all. We know that this divine presence is for each and every one. And as we step into this new world, we step into the birth of what we are giving forth, we know that we are divinely held, carried, and guided, just like the sun. Just like the divine perspiration that flows through us to cool the body down, to activate. So in this awareness, we let go and we open our hearts, our minds, and our spirit. Breathing in this I am presence we lovingly say, and so it is. So in this divine expression, I love this song. I love that I'm sweating. I love summer. I must admit, it's a little more humid than normal, than what used to be. But I just love the activity of summer. And just like summer, this song has been with us for many years, and it won't go away until we rise to a new level. We rise to a new livingness, we rise to a new beingness. Yeah. Well, you better listen, my sister and brother, 'cause if you do, you will hear the voices that are calling across the years, and they're crying across the ocean, and they're crying across the land, and we will until we all understand that none of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. If one of us in chains, none of us are free. Oh, there are people in the dark, 'cause they just won't see the light. If you don't say that it's wrong, that says it's right. We've got to give to one another, show each other that we care, send the message out loud and clear that none of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. If one of us in chains, none of us are free. 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 If one of us, if just one of us is in chains, baby, don't you know we are not free? Thank you. Thank you, Linda. Thank you. That's our theme song, in case you didn't know. So tonight, I'm getting ready to turn it over to my wonderful co-host, moderator. She is a vibrant facilitator here at Universal Spirit Center with the Paperback Ministry, with Racial Equality Project. She just gives and gives and gives. And so tonight, Carolyn Floyd will take the floor and take care of you. Let's give some love to Carolyn.
Thank you, Gino. Thank you very much. I'm really excited. I believe this is our third month of doing Stories of Racism. Yep. And tonight I'm blessed to have two friends with me. I've known a lot of our guests, but these two ladies I know well. And so I'm really excited to hear their stories. We've talked over the years. I know a lot of their stories, and that's why I asked them to share with you all tonight, because they've got powerful messages, and you know, their stories are ones that I didn't experience growing up, you know, in an all-white school out in the East County, and you know, I was really pretty sheltered, and so, and I would say ignorant. So I'm blessed to have these ladies in my life. We're going to have Amy go first. And one of the things Amy and I have talked, one of the things that I'm not familiar with that we've talked about is her growing up on a reservation as a Native American. And, what does that mean? What does growing up on a reservation mean? Have no idea. So I think she's going to share that tonight, and then just her story of how this beautiful, amazing woman came to be. So my friend, Amy Ketchum.
Better? Yep, there we go. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, so good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for asking me to be a part of this. It's such a blessing, and actually really appreciate having somebody come to me, like a friend of mine, like Carolyn, and saying, I want to hear your story. We've known each other for years. I'm really interested in this side of you, and we get to see a lot of sides of each other as your friends over the years, right? But there's just certain conversations we don't necessarily have about times of adversity and overcoming that adversity as you're growing up, and what that looked like, and how that played a role in who I am today, right? And so I think I'm going to kind of start a little bit before my time, and I'm going to go to the fact that, yes, I did grow up on a reservation, and it was very interesting. But what I will tell you is that when I was younger, when I was born, my mom and dad actually did not live on the reservation. My mom and dad were transplants from a reservation in Arizona. I was born in San Diego, so my mom and dad's family were both transplants into the local San Diego reservations. And my mom and dad, I've heard stories, but my mom and dad are the type of people that they lift the rug up, they sweep everything that nobody should know underneath it, and then they cover it back up, right? So by the time I kind of figured out how that was all going on, I was a little older. But what I can tell you is my parents thought it would be best when they moved to San Diego to try anything that they could to encourage their children to not live on the reservation when they got older, right? So there was a lot of that going on for my family. So when I was born, I have one older sister. My sister's 2 years older than me, and so we both were born into this era where my dad had really learned like work ethic from his dad and was able to earn a good enough living to not live on the reservation, right? So that is a huge thing for people apparently at that time, okay? It was huge for my father to make it big enough in the business world, and he owned a construction company. That was a family trade, right? And so him and all of his brothers were in construction, and my dad made enough money that we didn't have to live on the reservation. We didn't have to live down a dirt road in a home that had dirt for flooring, get food dropped off to us by the county or by the reservation every month at the first of the month, right? So that was huge for my dad. My dad, growing up, was always a very put-together man, very well put together, no hair out of place, sweats were ironed. It was just, that was his upbringing, okay? So for us, when my sister and I were born, we were not born into the reservation. We were kind of the lucky ones that were born off the reservation. And when I turned 5 years old, that all changed. And that changed because my mom and dad were, in a sense, betrothed because their families had moved here together. They were the same age. They had 4 boys in my dad's family, 4 girls in my mom's family. And they all grew up together, very, very close. My mom and dad were basically told, you're going to get married when you get older. So my dad married my mom when they were seniors in high school. Okay, so when my mom married my dad, she became a wife. And in our culture, that wife takes care of the house, that wife takes care of the kids, that wife does everything to honor that man, okay? And so my mom had never worked a day in her life, never took classes in high school that mattered, because she didn't think she was ever going to do anything but be a homemaker. So when my mom and dad went through a divorce and I was 5 years old, my mom was left with a situation where she got 2 wonderful, amazing kids and a work truck that was in my dad's fleet. Now, how those details worked out, none of my business, still don't know, still don't care, okay? But what I do know is that my mom could not afford to live off the reservation. So that was a huge shocker, because when I was up until 5, there were Jaguars in my driveway, there was nice trucks, there was nice this, and then all of a sudden it was, we're moving back to the reservation. This is where our people are from, this is where you should be growing up anyways. And so we had dirt floors. We had doors that barely locked. We had a school bus stop in Alpine that was about 2 miles from our front door. And there was no other bus stop. So we walked to the bus stop, those of us that attended school, by the way, because on the reservation, there is not, it's a sovereign nation for one, so you kind of don't have to abide by all the laws that we do out here. So there was 4 of us that I can fully remember that went to school every day. And that was me, my sister up until about high school, and then our friend Blue and another child. And so we would all walk to the, to where the bus stop was. I remember having, the holes in my shoes. I had hand-me-downs that were hand-me-downs that were hand-me-downs that were hand-me-downs. And we lived in Alpine. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with California or San Diego or even San Diego County, but Alpine is a predominantly wealthier area. So the socioeconomic gap for us was huge. We had the reservation with dirt floors, and then you had $1-million homes, and that was the difference. And there was no real middle class back then. I went to the school, I was born in '80. So I definitely had a very disturbed childhood during that time of 5 till about when I graduated high school. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that we were treated a little differently. I was one of 4 Native Americans at my high school. The rest were Caucasian. I think we had 1 African American for about a year. And then again, predominantly wealthy people from Blossom Valley and Alpine at the high school, right? So the beautiful thing is the 2 other Native kids that went to school with us, they were from the reservation that we grew up on. So when they turned 16, they got what's called per cap, which is a wonderful design to help Native Americans flourish. However, not so much when you're young and you give a 16-year-old a lucrative amount of money to do whatever they want with, and lo and behold, those 2 other students stopped going to school. So what I can tell you is I had stuff thrown at me when I was a kid. We were called different names because of our background. I studied with an elder after school growing up from our tribe, and that was so that we could learn the native ways. It was very strange to have to go do that when all of the other kids got to do sports and stuff, right? But I'm grateful for that today because it instilled that sense in me of what our culture is all about. And I still to this day, and have since I was the age of 7, played in a Native American women's drum circle. And I learned what sweating was about and what going to ceremony was about. I learned all of these things, and it was very different than the people that I was going to school with, that their biggest concern was, what do we have on cable TV? And I'm like, you guys have a television? Like your family has TV. And to me, you were rich if you had the big box of goldfish in your house, because we didn't have anything in our house growing up as far as food goes. There were times where we didn't have food for weeks. And sometimes the drop-offs were consistent at the first of the month, and sometimes they were not consistent at the first of the month. I made an amends. I don't know if I've ever shared this story with Carolyn, but I made an amends when I got sober 10 years ago, and that was to the gentleman that was the grocer right off of the reservation. There was a little liquor store there. And during times of need, my sister and I would go, and I would distract him, and she would get everything we needed. And there were times where we would pay in pennies because that's all we had. And there were times where we would take what we needed and go on with life. So I remember having to do that when I got sober off of alcohol, having to go back and make that amends. And he wasn't surprised. It was like, hey, I have to tell you something. I stole from you for years. We stole from you. And he was like, I know. It's okay, you know? But that's how it was like. And this is San Diego, and this is during the 80s and 90s and 2000s. So this is not happening years and years ago, you guys. This is not happening when my parents were growing up. So there was still a lot of adversity going on, right? And I knew for me that if I got an education, that was my ticket off of that reservation. And my sister's ticket off the reservation was drugs and alcohol, you know? And mine came later in life, right? So basically for us, it was a very different upbringing in the city of San Diego than it was for most people. And there was definitely a difference with the culture, like being on the reservation. My mom maybe came home maybe once a month, maybe, from the time I was probably 5 until the time I was 12. And whatever she was struggling with, whatever she was going through, nobody was calling anybody to tell them that these kids are alone. No one was calling anyone, and no one was coming on the reservation to get us. That just wasn't going to happen. The other thing that I grew up around was obviously because there wasn't any strict laws that were enforced. There was a lot of drug use. There was a lot of alcohol use. There was a lot of sexual abuse. It was very common on the reservation and it didn't happen to me, I can say that, and I'm very grateful, but there was a lot of times where family members would rape or sexually abuse the younger siblings, younger cousins, younger nieces, nephews. And there are a lot of people that are children of that today. You know, I have a lot of family members that their mother and father are cousins, and it's very common. And it was never reported, never will be, but that's just how it is. And so there were a lot of things that we turned our back on and just looked the other way because, like I said, I came from the family that pulled the carpet up, and we swept everything underneath it that made us look different because don't you tell those people outside of this reservation what goes on in here, and don't you let them know what we do here. That's our business, right? So for me, freedom really came when I left and went to school. Freedom for me came when I got to do that. And I'm kind of getting to my time, but I want to share with you guys that I struggled heavily. So when I left for college, I left that culture behind, and I didn't want to associate with it because it was terrible. And I wanted to just be a woman that had a little bit of a different colored skin. And I wanted to be known for my hard work ethic. I wanted to be known as the person that would go the extra mile, that would put in the work just like everybody else. And so that served me really well in my career. But in college and in the first part of my career, I stepped away from my background and my heritage. And I stepped away from that, and I didn't think I could have both. Because I thought that when I went back to the reservation, they would tease me that I sold out, I went and got an education, I know everything, look at that big shot, she makes money, she's one of those that works. So I didn't go except for education, things that we did through the tribal education. I didn't go back to the reservation for a lot of things. I'd make up excuses not to go back for powwows and sweats and stuff like that because I was just too busy. And in all reality, I wasn't too busy, I was just too afraid to be caught between two worlds. And it wasn't until I was probably about 4 years into my career, and I went back And the elder that we used to study with happened to be at my sister's place of business. And he said, hey, I want to talk to you. And I said, okay. And I went into the room with him, into the office, and he said, I want to know why you're not coming home to join us. I want to know why you're not at drum circles. I want to know why you're not at sweats and powwows, and I want to know why you're not doing this. So I was honest with him, and I told him that it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to be teased by my own people. It's embarrassing to be teased outside of it. I really don't know where I fit anymore, and I feel like if I just ignore everything that I'll be okay on this path, right? And he told me something amazing and wonderful. And he used to tell me when I was younger that I had this mind that was like an eagle's wing. And I would spread my wings and I would one day fly away. And he had always expected that to happen, apparently. But he wanted to let me know that just because I had the wings to fly didn't mean that I couldn't have roots. And I loved when he told me that because it really grounded me from that point on, and I started coming back to the powwows. I started coming back to the Native American Indian education, and I started working with kids and teenagers on 19 different reservations in San Diego, and I started being a part of that solution instead of part of the problem. And then I went through an addiction, and I came out of that, and I got more active again in it. So, you know, that's pretty much how it was for me growing up. And like I said, I think it's very important because I think everybody thinks you're just born into a family, and your family may or may not live on a reservation, or you're native, and this and that. And let me tell you guys, my dad still to this day is that man who walks out, and if he is going someplace, he has got his headdress rings on, he has got his hair perfect, he has everything going, and there is no mistake that that man is Native American. For me, I'm happy looking like it. I'm happy not looking like it. You know, like I am just happy in the skin that I get to wear today, and I'm very grateful for that. So, am I staying standing for questions? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Michael, there we go. I love your story, and I love your candidness. Really beautiful. What can people do outside of the reservation to help support? Mm-hmm. I guess this was in 2000 for me with the Pechanga Indian Reservation. I was blown away that there wasn't indoor plumbing. I didn't even have words. I was like, how is this possible? So what can we do to help either wake up, support?
Absolutely, thank you. So it is amazing to see that as early as 2000, we didn't have running water on some of the reservations in San Diego. And I think a lot of people think Native Americans get per cap and they get these houses and they have these casinos now, so they have money, right? But it wasn't like that all the time. It's very recent, very recent. And that's in California, by the way. In other reservations, we don't have casinos. We don't have that revenue stream coming in to help. I'm Yaqui. We are based out of Arizona, and so we still farm corn. So we don't have those, but what we do have is something called intertribal funding. And again, 19 reservations in San Diego County all contribute to that intertribal funding, which helps fund our children's education as early as kindergarten and preschool. It helps us fund their college educations. And then it also helps anybody into voc rehab or to any type of trade school as well. So as somebody not on the reservation, to support, I would say, any activity that you can be supportive in, like the powwows, learning about the culture, attending those, asking how you can be active in them, taking in and mentoring any type of child, because that's one of the biggest issues that we have on the reservation is we like to mentor our own. So a lot of what comes out of my head goes into this child's head. And so what happens in that retrospect is we don't have a lot of people that have actually gone out and seen the world. They haven't experienced other things, other cultures, and they may have a sense of I'm owed something from what's happened to my ancestors, right? I don't live that way because I've seen a lot in my life. I have been to other countries. I have been to other countries for work. I have been to other countries to visit them. I have seen other cultures. So when I mentor a child, I mentor them with an open mind in what I've seen. So I always encourage children to explore. As far as bringing anything else in, it's definitely a sense of love and comfort that people are usually looking for. And so there is a very huge mindset that we shouldn't trust outsiders. And I think they're still working towards that. So the more trust and love that we give each other and the more trust and love we give to them, the more that they are open and willing to actually accept that and accept other things as they come through. We're just not at that point yet. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. 10 years, and I didn't know any of that, so there you go. Next, another friend, Ceci. And Ceci and I we live under the same roof. And so we have a lot of discussions. And one of the things that we've discussed a lot is something I've done in my career, both as a banker and working in retail. And that's when you're trying to communicate to the adults and they don't speak English, you go to their children. And so there's a lot more to Ceci's story, but I know I'd like you to touch on that as what is it like as a child to be the interpreter of adult conversations for your parent? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Carolyn. And it's good to be with all of you. And my name is Cecilia Mendivil. I go by Ceci, which rhymes with Jesse. And I'm a native San Diegan. I was born and raised in National City. And my parents are from Sonora, Mexico. And they came across like in 1950. I have a lot of brothers and sisters. The three oldest were born in Mexico. I was born on this side. And my mom never learned English. My dad, interestingly enough, he was raised on both sides of the border, so he spoke English. And so when he came here, he was able to get a blue-collar job. And, you know, my parents knew how to save, and they had a house. They, you know, took care of their kids. And what would happen is, it's like each one of the kids had the job of being with mom to interpret for her. And somehow, once the older ones were out of the house and married, or like my two oldest brothers were in the service, they did go to Vietnam, it fell on me. And it stayed with me pretty much the rest of her life. And, you know, and I took care of her. And one of the hardest things was being a little girl, 4, 5, 6 years old, and I would go to the store, and I was just like her little right hand. And my dad, the way he supported our family, he worked for Mayfair Markets. And so we'd always go to Mayfair. And whether it was a store that my dad worked at or another one, you know, he got transferred a lot. My mom felt safe there. But it invariably would happen where she would need to ask a question, and there would be an awkward situation where a very tall Anglo man would end up leaning down into her face and kind of shouting, because she would stutter and she kind of knew a little bit of broken English. She would just be overwhelmed. And, you know, it was just would rapidly accelerate into this place of my mom's in trouble and she needs help. And so me being who I was, I would jump in and almost like divert the attention and start sharing and asking questions. And he'd like look away and look at me. And I could see that relief on his face, or usually it was a man, but it was like, oh good, she speaks English. But then there was like no recognition of how his behavior and how he was acting was affecting my mom. And so I learned to just take the heat and kind of divert the attention, because it really hurt to see my mom confused. And I was joking before we started about being the deer in the headlights, because that's what I saw. I saw my mom just afraid, and I would step in. So growing up in National City, my first language is Spanish. And it's interesting because in Mexico, even though I also have Yaqui ancestors, that's in Mexico, so there's no reservation systems there, but I'm like a mix. I have Yaqui on one side, there's English, there's Basque, which is, you know, from right between Spain and France. So I'm a big mix, and I used to joke around about being a Jaén salsa because there's all of it in there. And in my family, we're just like lots of different shades of brown. You know, I have cousins that are darker brown, then there's me that's like a lighter shade of brown. And I always got these weird questions, like people would meet you and they want to kind of classify you somehow or categorize you. Oh, are you Italian? Oh, I got that a lot. No, my parents are from Mexico. Oh, you're Mexican? Oh, you don't look like a Mexican. And I'm not kidding. This is what I would hear. You don't sound like a Mexican. You don't act like a Mexican. You don't even smell like a Mexican. I would just be like, wow, you know, and being a polite little Catholic school kid, I did not know what to do with that. I would just not say anything, but I'm just like, how can you say those things to me? Do you even realize what you're saying? No. And I would think back to the same situation with my mom where, oh, you're different, you don't speak English, so I'm going to intimidate you into, you know, somehow being something I can understand and deal with. And what I've come to understand in my life is, you know, human nature, it's like we want other people to be like us. And if you're like me, then if you're more like me, I can like you. If you're different from me, I don't know what to do with that. And I'm talking about, this is going on in the 60s and 70s, because I was born in the early 60s, so there was still not a lot of understanding back then. And I would be frustrated and kind of offended and upset, but I didn't know what to do about it. I was just like, go figure, I don't know. So, you know, growing up in National City, it was a little town where everybody knows everybody. And when I was in early elementary school, like kindergarten, first grade, there was a lot of white people, a lot of Anglos. And then like between the mid-60s to like the early 70s, they all moved out of the town. They left, and it was like, you could look in the yearbooks and see like just a huge mix, and then all of a sudden there's mostly brown faces and black, and there's Filipino, and later there was Vietnamese. But, you know, it was almost like a relief, like, oh, I don't have to try and be something I'm not, because I don't have that pressure anymore of, I have to be like you so you'll like me. And it was interesting because from there on through high school, it was just like being raised in a place where we were all different, but we all just got along. And no one cared like where you were from, what you looked like. It was just this peaceful, friendly atmosphere. And when I left my hometown to go away to college, I ended up in a big name college on the East Coast, because whatever, my teachers thought, you're smart, you can get in, so I applied, I got in. And it was another culture shock, because I don't know if anyone's seen, well, probably a lot of you have seen In the Heights, where the young girl leaves her little neighborhood in Queens or Brooklyn, wherever it is, and comes to California to go to Stanford. Well, I was the reverse. I left my little hometown of National City, ended up on the East Coast. And it was the same experience. So of who are you, where are you from, like, and then when it was understood, oh, she's a scholarship kid or she's affirmative action, oh, well, you just got your place because, there's those programs and you don't belong here. and I had people try to, hand me their plates in the dining hall as if I'm there to serve them, and I'd like say, no, I'm a student here. There's where you can put your tray. That's not my job. But for me, it was just too much. I ended up leaving. Like after 3 semesters, I said, I don't belong here. I don't want to be here, and I left. And I came home. And I came home to National City, and then I had like this. Because of that experience, I had like this real resentment towards like the dominant culture that just won't let people be who they are, and just allow people to be who they are, and just not have to ask questions. And that's something I've always wondered, like why so much, why so many questions? And that's where I started to develop that understanding. It's about, I want to feel comfortable, so I want to try to peg you so I know like who you are, so that I'll feel comfortable. So it's like I took on this role of, I think of Ricky Ricardo when he would say to Lucy, you got a lot of splaining to do. So I became this person that explained myself all the time, and I would tell people like overshare about who I am, where I'm from, trying to make them comfortable so that there'll just be some peace around here. And, I ended up getting married and living that traditional life of a wife and mother, and had children. And when I divorced, I was 40, and it was like all of a sudden this close-knit Catholic community I'd been a part of, I was starting to feel shunned, because I had initiated, the separation. And so it's like, again, I lose my bearings. Who am I and where do I belong? And so that was kind of where I first started venturing out again into the dominant culture. But this time I found a lot of compassion, because now we're talking, early 2000s. A lot of things had changed. A lot of compassion, a lot of just awareness, willingness to just meet me where I'm at. In like about 2010, that's about when I started coming to Universal Spirit Center. And it just felt, with each experience I had, I felt more and more like I'm coming home. I'm coming home to just being a person. It doesn't matter what I look like or what I believe. It just felt like a healing happening where I don't have to focus on the differences. I can just be myself and let everyone else be themselves, and just let that be how it is. But, I never thought about how this was different until, like, I had my own children, and I started to do the same thing of over-explain for them. And it just feels like a wake-up, like, why do you have to try to make other people comfortable? Just let them have their experience. You're not responsible for how they feel or what they think. Just be comfortable in your own skin and let it be. And, it's like questions answered. I'm like at a place now where I live my life. I still get a lot of questions about where you're from. For a while, I lived up in Orange County, and I got even new, oh, are you from Northern India? I'd be like, Northern India? And then I finally had to ask that, oh yeah, people from Northern India look like you. I also got a lot of, are you from Iran? Are you Persian? No, but I do have a Persian sister-in-law, and she taught me how to say aloha pa, which is like saying namaste. But one last thing I'll share is in 2001, with 9/11, I experienced this interesting shift where I'm in my neighboring city at a four-way stop, and I'm driving my kids to school, and there's an older Anglo couple like to the left of me, and they're both leaning forward in their car, and they're staring at me, and they're giving me these weird looks, and I'm looking at them like, and then I drove through the intersection, and I realized, oh, they think I'm Iranian. They think somehow I have something to do with what happened in New York. And it was like, here we go again, here it is. So ultimately, like, I've taken all of that in stride, and I just think, in all sincerity, bless their hearts. That's the best they know. That's the best they can do. I just let them live their lives. I don't have to explain anything to anyone, and I can just live mine. So that's about what I have to share.
There we go. Beautiful share. I have a question. As this journey for you of kind of what I felt was you accepting who you are, what would you say to someone? Because as people of color, one of my things that I really get on my family and friends about are minority. That is a separation that says already, I'm not enough, you're not enough. And so for me, it's like, okay, I want to be awake when I myself am making me less than. So what would you want to say? What have you learned in that?
Thank you. It really starts with our own healing, our own awakening, our own acceptance of ourselves just as we are. And one of the hardest things that I just keep coming back to was this idea that I somehow have to explain myself. When I finally was free of that, I was just able to meet people where they're at, not worry, and it has to start inside. It really does. Because otherwise, you can develop a lot of resentment or just this, reverse discrimination, this attitude of us versus them. And I think it's a huge undertaking, and it's a beautiful journey, but it's worth it. It's worth it to be free of all these stereotypes, the colorism, the ignorance, and just as I started to become more comfortable with myself, I could really allow everyone else to be who they were. And even when I get these interesting questions, I just answer and just very briefly and let it be. So, thank you.
I knew it was going to be a great evening. I have good friends. But thank you each for sharing. And, it's interesting. I used to work for a gentleman that was Chinese and German. And how do I know that? He was the most interesting looking man. I went up and said, "What are you?" And that's insensitive. So, it was a long time ago. But I think I'll strike that "what are you" from he's a human being. A very attractive human being. But anyway, thank you both. And I love doing this. Thank you. Gino.
I think there's something that we can start to talk about. How do we, because I think we have to have those questions. Let me get out. I think we have to have the uncomfortable conversation. So what's the new phrasing? If it's not, hey, where you come from? Who are you? What can we say? What could we create here? Everybody's like, yeah, that's a good question, but what? I mean, it's something to think about, because I look at it like nature. There's flowers that I see, and sometimes they're so beautiful, and I want to know, what are you? Wow, how, are you a blend? Are you this? Are you that? And so I think it's also the intent, because there are people that have said things, and it's not, the intent is nasty. And that is a different thing. That, yeah, the intent is coming from a real ill place. So just something to lay there on you to think about. Let's give some more love to Amy, Ceci, and Carolyn. I thank you guys so much for being here. I thank Universal Spirit Center for being a place that is open to explore stories of racism, to explore the uncomfortableness. And, you know, with both of you ladies, you shared your heart. And we need to have that. We need to have more of that so that we can have those conversations. So I'm really grateful and thankful for that, and for Carolyn bringing all of her friends in. I love that. And you've got some great friends. Wow, great night. It is our conscious giving time now. And so Universal Spirit Center, this is a space that constantly gives. A global heart community. We give to different organizations. We are a place that we're open at the top. And I love that about us. Because just because what is or was doesn't mean that's what has to be. So there are many ways that you can give by check. You can donate on our button on our website. You can go to PayPal. We did have a basket here. You could drop something in the basket. You can give of your time, your talent, and always of your moolah, your money. And we thank you. We thank you. Gratitude before me, gratitude behind me, gratitude to the left of me, gratitude to the right of me, gratitude above me, gratitude below me, gratitude within me, gratitude all around me. I'm so grateful. 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 I want to let you know a lot of the things that are going on at our center. We are busy since we opened back up, and I'll say right here and now, Wednesday, first Wednesday and third Wednesday of the month, Kitchen Conversations. Come on in person. We are doing a lot of things. Stories of racism are happening. Awakening Wednesdays, the second and fourth Wednesday of the month. Right now we have a wonderful Cook for Peace that's taking place every month that is connecting our food and our spirituality together. Powerful, powerful. And next Wednesday, Awakening Wednesday, we are revisiting something before COVID. We are having Toby Geis here. She's going to be doing some breathing work. So you can come in, get your mat, lay down. We're going to sage this place out and breathe into the divine. She is fantastic. That's going to take place here next Wednesday. You want to be here in person, but we'll also stream it as well. And I think our dear beloved Sherry Ganan has a class called Uncluttering. Who's got clutter? You got? Who don't got clutter? I got clutter. Powerful. And she's doing this on Zoom, which is very cool. It's going to be on Zoom. So you don't even have to leave your house. You can unclutter while you're at home on Zoom. How powerful is that? That's awesome. That's really great. And Sarah, I'm going to just let you put them up because there we go. Our action of the week. I believe, is this at the border, the park? Yeah. You can call. That takes place on the 25th of July. You can either go there. You have to RSV, though. RSVP, if you're going to go for the picnic, it takes place July the 25th, and it's at 11 o'clock, 11:30. And if you can't make it, you can call the Border Patrol to open the park back up, the Friendship Park, to allow families to come together and break bread and see each other. It's really important. Our Racial Equality Project, we do a lot of things to alert and awake us up to really help bring equality and help shift legislation and things that are taking place. I know we also have, is that it? Okay, well, no, we don't. Well, we don't have a slide for it, but next month, you know, we're doing Movie of the Month now in person, and next month we are doing The United States versus Billie Holiday. Powerful movie, and really based on some true events, which I was not aware of, but I've seen the movie. It's really great. And we will have popcorn and jujus and all kind of candy snacks and drinks. And after the movie, we unpack it. We talk about it. We discuss what's going on. So please check it out. So you can go on our webpage. There are classes that are coming up for the fall. You can go there and see what we're doing. If you need prayer, we always have practitioners that are available to know the truth when you can't know the truth for yourself. Gratitude before me, gratitude behind me, gratitude to the left of me, gratitude to the right of me, gratitude above me, gratitude below me, gratitude within me, gratitude all around me. We're so grateful. We're so grateful. We're so grateful. We're so grateful. We're just grateful. Oh, so grateful. We're so grateful. I'm blessed. Thank you, Sarah Adams, running the house. I appreciate you more than words can say. Linda, my roadie, that's my road dog right there. Woof, woof. Always with me. And of course, Universal Spirit Center and you beloveds that came out tonight. Thank you, 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 thank you. Have a fantastic evening. We'll see you Sunday morning. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. Things are on there every day. We got something happening. Not worried about tomorrow. Today I declare freedom from yesterday, all in my past. And I know that I'm brand new. And don't it feel good to know that all is well and unfolding as it should. All is well. All is well. All is well and unfolding as it should. All is well. All is well. All is well and unfolding as it should.